Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. As for what we're talking about here, we're going to take a look at the Eagles injury report. 2 starters for this Eagles team might be out for a bit, at least multiple weeks for one of them. We're also going to break down some Eagles news that you need to know. Before we take a look at that, though, and break it down, we have some breaking news here on Eagles Now. We've been talking about this over the last few days, really over the last couple of weeks since Avonte Maddox got injured, that Philadelphia might have to make a move in the secondary. Howie Roseman making one move right now in free agency. We'll see if a trade comes down the road, but right now they're going to evaluate where the secondary is with a new addition in Bradley Roby, a former first-round pick who's been in the NFL for nearly a decade. Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, breaking the news just moments ago here on this Tuesday afternoon, saying this, that former Saints and Broncos starting cornerback Bradley Roby signing with the Eagles after today's workout. I'm told that Roby, who has 3 career pick sixes, fielded interest from multiple teams, but wanted to help Philadelphia win a Super Bowl. And with Philadelphia, he's going to have an opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl, fulfill an important role, and add to the secondary that needs another addition, because they certainly got exposed a little bit against the Washington Commanders because Sam Howell had a lot of success through the air. Background on Roby. As I said, a first-round pick back in 2014 out of Ohio State. He's selected by the Denver Broncos, and he lives out his rookie contract there with Denver from 2014 to 2018. He goes to the Houston Texans, spends a couple of seasons there in 2019 and 2020, and then with the New Orleans Saints in 2021 and 2022. He's 31 years old right now, and certainly on the back end of his career. But this is a guy who now gets to join a team that has Darius Slay on the outside. I would imagine that Philadelphia is going to put James Bradberry back on the outside as well, and maybe Roby can be and play in the slot while also having the ability to play on the outside as well to give Sean Desai multiple options and a little bit of versatility there. Career stats for Roby, 126 games played throughout his career. That does include 60 starts. If you're looking at his career as a failure because he was a first-round pick, selected like 30th overall, I believe, I'm not sure if he's a failure. He probably hasn't lived up to those lofty expectations of being a first-round pick, but he's been a pretty solid player for a long time, and I think it's pretty telling that he's been able to remain with organizations for 2+ years in each of his 3 stops. 85 pass breakups in those 126 games, 11 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. So he does have good instincts. He can get a little bit aggressive and the big play ability to go along with 15 TFLs, as occasionally he will make a play in the backfield. So really, to round out this particular subject matter, I think the Eagles are a little bit concerned with where that secondary is. That's why they worked him out today, and that's why they're signing him to a deal. I think ideally you move James Bradberry back outside. You have Darius Slay as your other outside corner, and then you go with Bradley Roby on the inside, and then maybe you have that combination of Josh Jobe and Eli Ricks, a Mekhi Garner, who might be able to play in the slot as well, and then Sidney Brown once he comes back from that hamstring injury. He is hurt right now. And speaking of the latest Eagles injury news, this is the starter who I was talking about, who might be out multiple weeks, but we'll get to Britton Covey as well, who technically is a starter as a returner, who's also hurting. So with Jurgens likely to miss the next few games with a foot sprain, he left at halftime, Sunday game against Washington in Week 4. The good news is no break. X-rays were negative, but the MRI the following day did show the sprain for Cam Jurgens. Nick Sirianni, in his day after the game press conference, did classify him as week to week, and I think that that's going to be the realistic scenario here. Now, I do think this impacts Philadelphia quite a bit, and we'll pass along this tweet from E.J. Smith, fellow Temple University grad who's now working for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Went to TU with him. EJ, what up if you're watching? Nick Sirianni said Sua Opeta will be the guy at right guard. He's the one who came in for Cam Jurgens when he went out and was sidelined. Sirianni said Opeta played, quote, outstanding in the second half against the Commanders, and that Lane Johnson even mentioned to Sirianni how well Opeta performed in spot duty. Now, why is this important, though, for Philadelphia if Jurgens is out multiple weeks? We'll tell you in a second. But first of all, I like that Sua Opeta came in, but Jurgens had been playing pretty solid football this year. And he's also the backup center to Jason Kelce. So if Kelce goes down, then you're scrambling at that center position, which isn't ideal considering how much of a legend Kelce is, the great player that he is, the importance that he has with the run and pass game, and of course, with the brotherly shove. But for Jurgens, the continued growth of him has been impressive at a brand new position that he never played before at right guard because traditionally he is a center. 251 snaps up to this point, 136 pass rush snaps, 0 penalties, 0 sacks allowed, 0 hits allowed, 5 total pressures, not excellent, but you're looking at the clean sheet there for penalties, for sacks, for hits. This is also an example where I looked at the Pro Football Focus numbers. They were in that 60-65 range. League average is 70, but I think Jurgens played a little bit better than what the analytics do indicate. And going to that impact of the Jurgens injury, you think about it from a multifaceted kind of approach here, right? The Eagles in 2022 were top 5 in injury rate. In 2021, they were top 5 in injury rate. Already, they've been an injured football team throughout the first month of the season. And especially at that offensive line last year, the Eagles only had 6 starting offensive linemen all of last year. So you're already tapping in to the injuries and the depth there for this Eagles team. Jurgens, as I noted, also Jason Kelce's backup, so it does impact 2 positions if Jason Kelce were to go down. A lot more to get to on today's show, but first, join the movement and subscribe to the fastest growing and largest independently run Eagles channel right here on YouTube. We give you daily updates and shows on the Birds, and we're approaching 60,000 subscribers. So if you want to stay in the know with the Philadelphia Eagles every day, year-round, hit that sub button right now. From Cam Jurgens to Britton Covey, injury update for a guy who's been one of the best punt returners in the game since the end of last year. More on that in a moment. He's in concussion protocol, is Covey, after getting hurt late in the fourth quarter. His last touch came on a 20-yard punt return with under 3:30 to go, which did help set up the Eagles' go-ahead touchdown when Jalen Hurts hit A.J. Brown from just under 30 yards out on that dime to A.J. as he burned and cooked Emmanuel Forbes, who had a long day in South Philly after talking all that ish. And the Eagles didn't reveal when Covey did get hurt, but his last touch of the game was on that punt return, so I imagine it came on that return. He played 11 snaps against Washington, and half of those were actually as a wide receiver, as we noted during the broadcast with our watch party. He's starting to get a little bit more offensive run. And Britton Covey this year, okay, Covey, we see you. You didn't make the initial 53-man roster. A lot of people were calling you for you to get cut, not be this team's returner. But in 2023, 9 punt returns, 151 yards, averages 16.8 yards per punt return. That is good for number 3 in the NFL. And if Covey cannot go Sunday on the road against the Rams, there are in-house Britton Covey replacements. 2 players on the active roster and then 1 on the practice squad. Olamide Zaccheaus has experience returning punts. Boston Scott has experience as a returner. The Eagles have used him this year as a kick returner in some spots, and then Greg Ward can fill that role as well if you decide to elevate him from the practice squad. And a lot of you may have said, wait, Chase, what do you mean Britton Covey's been one of the best punt returners in the league since the end of last year? That's not an opinion. That's just a fact, according to the numbers. Since Week 13 of 2022, going into last week against Washington, Britton Covey, 291 punt return yards, first in the NFL, 14.5 punt return average, tied for first, minimum of 15 returns, 13 punt returns of 10-plus yards, number 1 in the NFL, 9 punt returns of 15-plus, that's atop the league as well, 5 punt returns of 20-plus yards, also first, and then 4 punt returns of 25-plus yards. So he's number 1 in all those categories. So a lot of people took issue with Covey. Looks small. Game was too fast. He's made those necessary adjustments, and he's been a pretty solid player. Coming up next here on Philadelphia Eagles Now, are there concerns about Dallas Goedert? This mystery linebacker on the Eagles is playing great. So great that he's been one of the best across the entire NFL, and he might be putting Nakobe Dean on the hot seat. Also, a wild Jalen Hurts stat that we want to pass along as well. But this is Rams week. Eagles prepping for this game Sunday against Los Angeles. The motto all throughout this week is BLA. Make sure you type that down below in the comment section right now. Our sponsor for today's show is Zbiotics. Let's face it, a lot of you join our watch parties and you tune in. Every single one of them has gotten about 100,000 views this year. And let's face it, after y'all hit me with a bunch of super chats, that'll bounce back well the next day always. That is, until I found Zbiotics. Zbiotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Zbiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down, and it's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it the most. Drink Zbiotics before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly, of course, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. And this is the packaging that it comes in here. The bottle's also very small, which I love because I'm able to throw this into a travel case and travel with them. Great packaging, great size, and you're able to feel better the next day. It's zbiotics.com/chatsports. You can also scan the QR code that we've had popped up on the screen as well. This Halloween pair your candy and cocktails with Zbiotics to avoid a spooky next morning. So one more time, it's zbiotics.com/chatsports. Scan that QR code. It is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So you can also sign up for a subscription as well if you like what they have to offer. We continue to move forward on today's show. Dallas Goedert concerns. Are you concerned? You might be. Am I? I'd like to see him get involved a little bit more. Is Nick Sirianni? Not really. Through 4 games, Goedert, only 13 catches, 88 yards, and a goose egg as far as his touchdowns. But Sirianni, head coach for Philadelphia, does have some reasonings behind that. He said, I still think it's a small sample size. There's always a combination of different things. Something may break down in a play when Dallas is supposed to get the ball. There are just so many different variations of what can happen. Trust me, I promise you, he's still part of the plan of wanting us to get him the football. We need to get him the football. Sometimes there's a dry spell in there, too, of what's kind of going on right now. Again, there are some different things that defenses are concerned of with Dallas that has affected some of his touches that he's gotten, and I'm not going to get into that. Competitive advantage. I don't think that I need to get into that. It's definitely a little bit of both, right? He is a great player. They do rely on him. But I will say this about Dallas Goedert, is that even though he's not contributing the way we all envision him to contribute at this particular time in the pass game, he's been a force in the run game. A force. And that's part of the reason why Dallas Goedert is so critical to this Eagles offense and the success that this unit has. Because whether it's pass protection, or it's blocking in the run game, Dallas Goedert is one of the best all-around tight ends in the NFL. And I'm here to tell you that every single season, or every single game so far this season, I should say, we've seen this passing game make progress. We've seen this passing game get a little bit better. And Jalen Hurts has looked more and more comfortable as he's adjusted to how defenses have adjusted to Jalen Hurts. And also, I think when you go from a great play caller in Shane Steichen, the Indianapolis Colts have been very competitive this year. They could have 3 or 4 wins at this point. That's a credit to Steichen, his work with Anthony Richardson now, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert. When you go from a guy like that, who's had a lot of success, to a guy in Brian Johnson, who's never called plays at the NFL level, there is a little bit of a transitional phase. And we've seen that work out before our very eyes. What's impressive here is that this Eagles passing attack didn't break out until the 4th game of the season, yet they're still number 5 in points per game. But look at how Jalen Hurts has gotten better each week. 170 passing yards in week 1, up to 193 in week 2, 277 on the road against the Bucs in week 3, and then against the Commanders, 313 yards. He's up for FedEx Air Player of the Week. And with that, as the passing game does take some of those strides, Dallas Goedert at some point is going to have a big game. He's going to break out, and he's going to be more a part of this offense. But when you have Devontae Smith going off in week 1, and then A.J. Brown the last 2 weeks, it's hard to spread the football out. There's only one pill, but I think that Nick Sirianni has done a very good job of establishing a culture in Philadelphia where people don't complain about touches because it's all about winning and Jalen Hurts is a part of that foundation as well. That mystery linebacker who I wanted to talk about, who has officially put Nakobe Dean on the hot seat, it's Nicholas Morrow. And let me say that again because I want to use this for a YouTube short. Nicholas Morrow has officially put Nakobe Dean on the hot seat for when Dean comes back with how well he's played. Morrow has been a revelation for this Philadelphia Eagles defense ever since he got activated to the active roster from the practice squad a couple of weeks ago. He had 3 sacks on Sunday against the Commanders. Those 3 sacks are more than the Chicago Bears have all year. That was his former team. And the highest graded linebackers in the National Football League, Nicholas Morrow is number 2 behind one of the highest paid linebackers in the game in Roquan Smith, formerly of the Bears, now with the Baltimore Ravens. Sean Desai has had an opportunity to use him in a really creative way where he's been a blitzer, but he's diagnosed some plays against the run, and he's made some pretty good plays in coverage too, and the Eagles are barely paying him anything. It goes down once again as a very financially savvy move by Howie Roseman, and good job by Morrow because he didn't even make this initial 53-man roster after a bad training camp. He's had his opportunity. He's played really well, and now Nakobe Dean, we're not sure how well he's going to play or if he's going to play when he comes back. It also has to do with Zach Cunningham playing some really good football. Like those 2 off-ball linebackers, Morrow, Zach Cunningham, I've been impressed by them over the last couple of weeks. That Jalen Hurts stat that'll kind of blow your mind. We talked on Monday's show about how Sunday marked his 5th come-from-behind game-winning drive. And really, it was 6 when you add in that he threw that go-ahead touchdown to A.J. Brown at the end of the 4th quarter, and then it was negated, right? But how about this? Jalen Hurts has now won each of his last 5 regular season starts when facing a double-digit deficit. He joins Joe Montana, 89-90, and Steve Bartkowski, 80-81, as the only quarterback since 1950 with such a streak. Cool, calm, and collected Jalen Hurts. Clutch gene Jalen Hurts just tried to make his idol proud in Michael Jordan, and he carries himself the same way. Dog. If you love this football team, show me that you love the Birds by typing bleed green down below in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and if that's the case, subscribe if you haven't already done so.